human resources, human capital, people, and culture. This single vocation has many names. HR professionals are responsible for what is arguably the most critical success factor within any organization. It's talent. HR Studio Podcast brings you interviews from HR and industry thought leaders so you can listen, learn, and leverage. Welcome to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. HR Studio is brought to you by AJ O'Connor Associates. To learn more about our sponsor, please visit ajoconnor.com and be sure to check out the AJO blog for additional HR learning tools and resources.
Welcome to HR Studio. This is your host, Kyle O'Connor. I am really pumped to have back our guest, Bruce Tolgan. If you haven't heard Bruce's first interview, go back to episode 4 on our website, and I would definitely listen to it. Some great tips on bridging the soft skill gap, on coaching and developing millennials in the workplace. I'm having Bruce back today because he just did some great research and revised a book, a bestseller that he did, Bruce, back in 2009, correct?
Yeah, it was Not Everyone Gets a Trophy. It came out in 2009, but we've been updating our research on the new millennial workforce every step of the way. So we did a revised, updated edition of the book last year.
Excellent. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you back, Bruce, because you guys do such phenomenal research. If you could just take a second to go into detail about how you gather your research and the huge demographic that you've developed over the last several decades, because that's really important when we're looking at these statistics, definitely.
Yeah, well, so for almost 25 years now, it's over 24 years, we've been doing in-depth interviews on the front lines of the workplace. And what we do is we interview young people in the workplace, and then we interview their colleagues, we interview their managers, and then we go back and interview young people again. And many of them we've been in dialogue with for a long, long time, by email or we go back and interview them again. And so for decades, we've been doing this. So more than 500,000 people have participated in our research. And anytime I go into an organization, we try to do a survey, we do interviews, we do focus groups whenever we possibly can. So we've been gathering this data now for over 24 years, and we've been trying to keep our finger on the pulse of the new young workforce as it continues to change, and help business leaders and managers understand what young people are looking for and how to bring out the best young talent.
Excellent. That's really good. And I mean, you said 500,000. That's huge. So there's definitely some, you're definitely finding a lot of gems in there, and you have enough of a research demographic to say this is factual. It's not just, I find from myself, I am a millennial, and I was talking to a colleague earlier today, and there's definitely some truth to everything people say about certain generations. However, it needs to be backed by research before you go and just start implementing. And you see some organizations doing this, that, and the other for millennials, but do they have the research behind it? So my question.
Yeah, and in fact, to that point, I mean, that's really important because, and our research is qualitative research. So I don't claim that, hey, our guidelines about where young people are coming from and where they're going, that this defines everyone. We're making vast generalizations about tens of millions of people at a time. What we're trying to look at are broad trends, broad common denominators in attitudes, behaviors, expectations. Look, with young people, it's because they're the new young workforce. They're on the bleeding edge. And so I always say, if you look at the youngest, least experienced people, they're like canaries in the coal mine. They show you where we're all headed. They're already there, and they've never known it any other way.
Great. Definitely canaries in coal mines. That's a good good comparison. What, from your last version of this book, Not Everyone Gets a Trophy, what really jumped out at you the last couple years here, about 7 years, I would say? What's something that really shocked you and you said, wow, that's interesting?
Well, I can't say that I'm shocked because we're looking at the data every day. So it's not like I went into a vacuum for 7 years and then came out and said, "Oh, let's see how it's changed."
Right.
I hope that's how some people experience the book. But from my perspective, we've been looking at this every day, and what we do primarily is advise organizations, advise business leaders on what's changing when it comes to staffing strategy, how to attract the best young people, how to select the best employees. What's the best way to get people on board and up to speed? What is it people are looking for? Flexibility. How do you give them flexibility? How do you drive performance in an era where people don't believe in the long-term promises, right? That, hey, here's where you're going to be in 5 years. Here's where you're going to be in 10 years. Here's where you're going to be in 15 years. That doesn't really work anymore because there's so much uncertainty. So then how do you drive performance? How do you keep people engaged? How do you make people stay 5 years, 10 years when you can't do it with the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? You have to do it on a day-to-day basis. And so what we're doing in our research is following these trends as they develop. So, for example, the biggest trend we've tracked over the last 2 decades is a shift away from the old-fashioned, long-term, hierarchical, pay your dues, climb the ladder, do as you're told, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, figure it out, nobody held my hand, and in the long run, the system will take care of you, to what is now a much more dynamic, short-term, transactional environment. And, my view is young people are very plugged into this short-term transactional environment. Older, more experienced people are the ones who are experiencing more radical change. Younger, less experienced people, they've never known it any other way. They're like, all right, let's go.
That's really interesting. So do you see kind of a power struggle when you have a lot of millennials entering this workforce, but you still have some leadership at the top that are those baby boomers, and you said they're challenged with this new dynamic transactional environment. That's kind of when you come in to help them, I guess.
Right.
What are like 1 or 2 stories that you have that you saw a big transition and I would say a success with overcoming that challenge?
Well, usually what I try to do is help business leaders and managers and help organizations understand that young people today, they're not disloyal. They just think short-term and transactional. It's more the kind of loyalty you get in the marketplace. You get what you pay for. It's the kind of loyalty you have to your customers. Or, if they stop paying you, stop delivering. So, so a lot of times older, more experienced people, they look at young people and think, oh, they want everything on a silver platter. No, they don't. They want to know, what do I need to do to earn that thing? Right. Oh, you don't want to work on Thursdays. What most young people want to know is, tell me what I got to give you by Wednesday at midnight, right, so that I can get that Thursday off. What young people tell us is they don't want everything on a silver platter. They want to know, what do I need to do to earn that thing that I want? They don't want to waste their time. They want to hit the ground running. They don't want to sink or swim. They don't want to reinvent the wheel. They don't want to waste their time. They want their employers to set them up for success, to spell out expectations every step of the way, to help them problem solve and troubleshoot, to help them keep score. What most young people want is to do a bunch of work very well, very fast, all day long, and get credit for it all day long. And that's good for business. So the idea that what young people want, what millennials want to be humored, they want work to be fun, they want to be given everything on a silver platter, that's just nonsense.
Great. No, it's an interesting perspective. I've never really heard that perspective, I would say. So it's interesting. Is there a company that's out there that you see that's really doing a great job of this, and how are they kind of implementing this into their culture?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of companies that are doing a great job employing young people. The one I always point to is the United States Marine Corps.
Okay.
Because, because the Marines, they say, hey, we've got a lot of extraordinary people, but we have a lot more ordinary people. It's just that we get extraordinary performance out of them all day, every day.
Right.
By the way, they're 18, 19, 20, these young people. And when young people go into the Marine Corps, remember, we don't pay them very much. It's a dangerous job. They're abroad in harm's way. People are shooting at them. God bless them and keep them safe. And yet, so what's the approach that works for them? We make work fun. They all get a trophy just for showing up. We take a soft approach to them and, hey, come to work whenever you feel like it and bring your dog. Nope. It's, they grab a hold of them. It's strong, highly engaged leadership every step of the way. They set them up. What they do is they build you up. They take you from being an ordinary human being and turn you into a United States Marine.
Right.
And what they don't bark orders at you. And yeah, you do a lot of push-ups in the sand, but that's because you got to get strong. And what they do is they provide guidance, direction, support, and coaching every step of the way. They hold people accountable. They build people up, make them faster, stronger, better, and help them get rewarded. And as you go the extra mile, you get rewarded every step of the way. So, to me, that's an extreme example, right? But Enterprise Rent-A-Car does a phenomenal job managing young people. Why? Because they take them seriously, because they set them up for success, because they take a teaching, coaching approach, and because they put their money where their mouth is. When young people deliver for the business delivers for them. I could give you example after example of great organizations in every industry where they make the quid pro quo explicit every step of the way. Here's what we want from you. Here's what we have to offer you. And we're not insulted that you think short-term and transactional. This is a business. This is what you do for a living. This is how you feed your family. This is your career. So it's win-win every step of the way. But the fact is that's high maintenance.
Right.
And it requires leaders to, leaders can't just wind people up and figure, pay your dues, climb the ladder, sink or swim, reinvent the wheel, figure it out, son. Nobody held my hand. That doesn't work anymore.
That's good. That right there is a lot of value. I appreciate that. That's kind of the last question I had for you was, what are the last chapter of this book really talks about the next generation of leaders. From what you just told me, it sounds like the undertone or the theme for these successful companies is taking the time to be intentional and develop people. That's essential versus just kind of saying, here's a desk, stick it out for 30 years. That doesn't work anymore. You need to develop these leaders. So if I'm an HR leader, let's say, and my company is so with having a program of some sort of developing or coaching or anything like that, what would my steps be for kind of turnkeying something to get people, these younger people in, to make it engaging and get them to really be, there grinding it out every day?
Well, my advice to HR leaders is you got to start with staffing strategy, with attraction, selection, onboarding, up-to-speed training. That whole process has to be about selling a growth experience, a self-building experience, a win-win experience where you make it really clear all the downsides of the job, but all the rewards of the job. Everything we're going to demand of you, but all the different ways we're willing to invest in you. And, one of the things you can sell to young people, young, ambitious people, is strong, highly engaged leadership. Like nobody joins the Marine Corps so they can hide out and be treated like a low performer who, nobody really cares, and then you get paid anyway.
Right.
You want to employ, you don't want to employ them. You want to employ, if you find young people who want weak leaders, you got the wrong people. So, in the whole upfront process, you got to bring in people who want to be high performers. Then so that's HR's first piece. The second piece is you've got to build a leadership culture of strong, highly engaged coaching style leadership. Nobody should be in charge of anyone unless they're prepared to be a teacher and a coach every day.
Great advice. I appreciate that. That was a lot of value for our audience, so thank you for sharing that. Bruce,
Thank you.
This was a lot of great stuff, and I'm definitely going to pick up a copy of this book. What's next for you? What would you like to offer up to our audience to follow you? Obviously, I recommend them go on Amazon to get the book, or however you want them kind of finding this.
Yeah, you can get any of my books on Amazon. Not everyone gets a trophy. It's okay to be the boss, and all the other ones. If you go to our website, rainmakerthinking.com, there's a bunch of free content. We have a news feed there where we always have new content. My office would say follow me on Twitter at Bruce Tulgan also.
Great. And then the other thing is, too, sign up for your surveys as well. I still get those emails, and I fill them out, so it's important, too. You're always looking to pull for people to get that information, the qualitative research. So we'll have this all linked up in our show notes. Bruce, thank you so much for being on our show again. It's always a pleasure learning from you, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. To download the show notes and discover additional information from this week's episode, please visit hrstudiopodcast.com. To join the conversation, we invite you to visit our LinkedIn group, where you will connect with a growing community of current and future HR leaders.